Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good evening here in Berlin to the Aurora Dialogues Berlin 2017.
The European history is a history of migrations. It would be possible and politically necessary to prevent migration. This assumption is simply out of reality.
We could have as many as 200 million climate-displaced people by 2050.
So giving orientation for this situation of increasing insecurity is the major orientation of the meeting today.
Half of today's refugees are children.
There's media too who take the easy route too, who purposely pass on bad information.
We neglected to inform people what it is to belong to a Muslim society.
Change is hard, and so politicians, some of them and some political parties don't want to change.
And that, I think, is one of the key challenges, because we're not going to solve that just by money. We can only solve that by meaning, by purpose.
Everybody's working with concept as emotional intelligence or the IQ, but there has to be something like cultural intelligence also. So understanding the tales, understanding the narratives, understanding the underlying assumptions of society.
It's the first assumption that this entire migration problem is an African fault.
It is a fabulously wealthy continent. There are extraordinary natural resource wealth, and most of it is being looted and stolen right now.
And xenophobia, nationalism, populism is coming not because of migration, but much broader point of the people scared about future. And they're scared about future, looking backwards, and they're trying to defend their own territory, they're trying to find enemy, somebody outside. This is why analyzing the migration problem, you need to analyze all other changes happening in society.
Let's look at some of the sources in Europe, because it's not just an African issue.
Not only in the richer countries, there's less willingness to help out refugees.
As an African mother, I can say that it's possible to prevent some migration.
When asked why a father would be so irresponsible to put his family in a boat to go across the Mediterranean where they might die, in the process he said, do you think that any father would do that if they didn't think that where they come from is worse than what is going to happen on the Mediterranean?
It's the human story of what's happening to people on the way.
The next 20 years, the next 100 billion euro from Europe for development cooperation should be used for political issues to tackle the neighborhood between the two continents, Africa and Europe. And we have to speak about with Africans much more in a way that is honest, that is open, frank to them. And we have to say what we can commit, what we are able to do and not able to do, and we also have to ask the other side, the Africans, what they are able to do, and have to recognize what is not possible with them.
But we need absolutely better narratives and better enlightenment to our citizens.
But how does that narrative get created when there's so much emotion?
It's a holistic approach, not just a private sector approach to the migration crisis.
But it needs an education system that cares about values.
People in countries that are not as fortunate as we are, digitalization can be a huge advantage.
The incentive structures favor mass looting, mass corruption. We need to somehow affect those incentive structures.
And they got up and told me, we know all this. You tell us what is the way out.
We are not to teach Africa how they should develop.
Do we really need a Marshall Plan for Africa? There's an Agenda 2063 by the African Union.
If we had the political will, and it's a choice,
I think it should be an African plan for Africa, not a German Marshall Plan. for Africa.
Let the people tell the story in the TV.
Education is a first and most critical investment.
I frankly think that the whole discussion in Germany, fueled mainly on the conservative side about maintaining German identity, is profoundly misguided.
We do need the public sector in these instruments.
But it would seem to me that that's a start, providing a legitimate way into Europe, besides all of these illegitimate ways, to take some of the pressure off at least.
So we cannot only look to national frontiers, we have to look to what can be done in European terms. So this makes it complicated, and this brings me to the point that we should be clear of what we do and where we do it.
If we went after the money that's being stolen from Africa, it would be literally billions and billions of dollars that could be frozen and seized and recovered and returned back.
A massive investment will not stop the migration challenge.
There is still a big lack of information about facts and figures.
I saw how important it is that we learn to have really intelligent networks.
There is that human aspect in it all.
They took everything from Maison Shalom Burundi, but nobody can stop the love.
I think at the end of the day, it's about hope.